Hey everyone, Gabriel Nassif, aka Yellowhat, and this is going to be part 4 of our set review with Kanister, Crimson Vow set review. We're going to be reviewing the red cards, and I also just want to give you a little update on my first day of playing with the new cards. I've been playing with this Vampire deck on the ladder, and it's been doing really well for me. I made a video about it, a short video about it, if you want to check it out, but deck has been sweet, so it's possible we kind of underestimated some of the red and black cards. Quick disclaimer, but I made it all the way up from rank 600 to rank 3. So yeah, that's just a little quick update. But with no further ado, here's the review of the red cards with me and Kanister.
The first red card that we have before us, Alchemists Gambit, 1 red sorcery. Cleave, 7 mana. Take an extra turn after this one. During that turn, damage can be prevented. It's like the most random line as you could put. And then at the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game if you haven't paid the cleave cost. Exile Alchemists Gambit. And this card brings us to a philosophical question, because obviously there's a time walker, like Epiphany decks are super good in standards, like the best decks or whatever, and they're playing time walks. In fact, they're sometimes combining time walks with the Galvanic Iteration, the copying spell. But that brings us to a philosophical question. Is Alron's Epiphany good because it's a time walk? Or is it because it's good? Because the bears, for example, do something that already, like casting Epiphany alone grants you an advantage that snowballs, that takes advantage from the fact that you're taking an extra turn. And it's the fact that it's, potentially a 6 mana card when foretold versus a 7 mana just time walk effect relevant. I think it is all relevant. I think there is not a 0% chance for Gambit to be played as a redundancy for the Galvanic Iteration, but I also think that it's more likely than not that this card sees no play in the end. Like, probably gonna see play at start, at first when like people put it in their decks because new card and like pattern matching brain wants you to put it in your deck because it's a time walk. But I'll be surprised if it actually like has staying power and it's actually much good for those decks.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the 7 mana cost is good. I think if it sees play, it'll be the one or two offs in aggressive decks. And I don't think the 7 mana cost is good. I think the reason Epiphany was good is because you had the foretell cost, you had the 2 tokens. You remove either of these 2 conditions, and I don't think we see the same domination of Epiphany. So yeah, I think that card's just kind of whatever.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to combine iteration with a card, like much easier to combine with a 6 mana card than with a 7 mana card. So yeah, like expecting minor play and like less of it with time with Alchemist Gambit. I think it's kind of a debate. The Final Fortune part of the card for Blake. I don't remember really Final Fortunes being super playable anywhere besides like some memers who like to pair them with like Gideon emblems or like Platinum Angel effects.
Yeah, I remember playing 1 copy of Chance for Glory in a white red aggro when it was History of Benalia. You had the 4 mana white red sorcery that makes 2 1/1s and I think gives haste +1/+1 to all your creatures. And I was kind of happy with the 1 copy. It was, you could play it, you could not play it, but the 1 copy was fine for me, and maybe that card will be the same thing.
Yeah, I'll give it 2 out of 5 for the like initial initial playability that's going to see in decks, but
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's gonna fade out.
Yeah. I will give it a 1.
Did you say 1?
Yeah, I just don't think it's gonna see play in any reasonable list.
Right, Bad Cop, whoops. Bad Cop Gab.
Yeah.
Strikes again. Chat claims that Chance for Glory Fires of Invention was crazy. Well, I have no such memories, but maybe some others do. Cemetery Gatekeeper. 1 red, creature vampire, first strike. ETB, exile card from the graveyard. Notably, unlike the other cards, it only does that on ETB. Whenever a player plays a land or casts a spell which shares a card type with the exiled card, Cemetery Gatekeeper deals 2 damage to that player.
Yeah, as you say. I think the fact that it's a vamp and has first strike could make it relevant. I think you remove first strike, you give it a random creature tap that's basically unplayable. Still doesn't seem that great to me though.
Yeah. There's like different uses of these cards in different formats, because in Modern, not always, well, I guess always, you can exile a card from your graveyard and then it houses your opponent, right? A player also deals damage to you. So, for example, like in Modern, you can rely on having a fetch land cracked by the time you are playing it, so you can pretty reliably set it on fetch lands. And then like you deal damage for every land that's being played, so like that's kinda akin to an Eidolon.
Okay, I didn't realize. Sorry, yeah, I didn't realize it was both players whenever a player plays. Oh wow, okay.
Me neither. Actually, I was surprised that it's both players. Like those new cards always bringing many surprises. The more you read into their abilities, while in Standard, you're kind of gonna have to rely. If you use this card, you're gonna rely more of its stat line, and this is more of a late game ability. But early in the game, there is hardly going to be cards in the graveyard. So when you play on turn 2, like especially in the play, like you probably won't have a card in the graveyard to exile.
Yeah, Alright, let me read it again. Whenever a player plays a land or casts a spell, if it shares a card type with exile. Oh, but it's symmetrical in a bad way, right? That it's like a downside for you, for the players who plays it. Because for a second I thought that like you remove a land, and then when you play a land and when they play a land, they take 2 every time. But no, you take the damage.
No, they take the damage too.
Wait. Whenever a player plays a land or casts a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, Gatekeeper deals 2 damage to that player. So if you exile a land, when you play a land, you take 2.
Yes, but when they play land, they play 2. That player refers to the player who played the land or casted a spell earlier in this ability.
I thought it was just one-sided. It was like you exile a fetch land, and every time they play a land, they take.
No. When you exile a fetch land, every single time a player plays a land, they take 2 damage.
Yeah, so it's worse. It's worse than I thought it was. Yeah. Okay. No, that card's.
So, like, how? Let's start with how many hats do you give to the wording and general like clarity of this card?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just me. I can't read, so I'm not gonna blame it on the card for that one.
Okay, I did get confused by it too, so I would give it like, I wouldn't give it 5 out of 5 for clarity. like more closer to 3, because I think they're like a grizzly bear is easier to process and understand than this. But it's pretty harsh. We also like got it wrong with the first blue member of the cycle who couldn't exile, who couldn't play lands.
Yeah.
And this one can play lands. So I mean, I think it's a decent 2-drop for like mono red and standards potentially. Kinda.
All right.
Probably if you make use of the type line.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 1. I think it's just not playable.
Wow. Give it a 2. I've had people ask me about whether it's like potentially applicable in Modern Burn, but I'd be surprised if it is.
Yeah, the problem is they just kill it and then they play their land.
Yeah.
And it dies to red and 6. It's just
way to dunk in there. Chandra, dress to
kill.
Ah, I couldn't read because it's covered on the card. 1 red.
Maybe it gets to Bill. She's just a count in Chandra.
It could be like Chandra dress to roll, TBH, with the way it's covered. Like, we don't know. +1, add red mana. Use 1 damage to 1 target player or planeswalker. +1, exile top card. If it's red, you may cast it this turn. -7, exile top 5 cards in the library. You may cast red spells from among them this turn. You get an emblem of whenever you cast a red spell. This emblem deals X damage to any target, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast a spell. Free starting loyalty. First, I have to say that this ultimate ability is way too complicated and it's like not worth it. Reading it is not worth it, because given like how often you use an ultimate by planeswalker in a game, it's kind of a waste to make it that complicated. Second, it seems like a pretty solid, actually like very solid anti-control planeswalker out of aggro decks, but hardly a main deck card. It's really bad if the board isn't clear on your opponent's side.
Yeah. I think that card's just bad. I mean, maybe a little harsh, but I feel like the +1 doesn't really do anything. It has to live, and then the second +1, 2/3 of the time you're gonna break, and it's not that great. The ultimate, I guess, is probably fine. I stopped listening when you started reading the ultimate, and yeah, it looks like another one of these kind of mediocre planeswalker, but I'm not going to complain that they're not making the planeswalkers busted, so
yeah, I don't blame them. It's kind of the same as Sorin, that like the role in which I can imagine that if somebody has like plenty of creature removal and sweepers and has a bit more trouble doing with planeswalker, you cyborg this in your aggro deck, like literally the same card.
Yeah.
And like, you know, the first +1 you add a mana ping for 1, that's like 2 minor effects, kind of whatever. The second ability is unreliable, so it gives you a card with a spell, and if you can cast it, so it's kind of a lot of ifs, so like it probably draws you a card half the time, like roughly speaking. So it's kind of low value.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine card, but when you compare it to what else you can play or what's going on in standard, I don't think it lines up very well with people playing a bunch of very efficiently costed creatures, and you know, it's a bit slow to take over against the Epiphany decks, maybe the control decks.
Yeah, it really needs a really passive opponent that kind of gonna let her ult, I assume, because we're not sure if the ult is even gonna win. Chad is saying something about Obosh red in Modern, but that deck barely exists to begin with, and I don't know, it seems that attractive to me. A planeswalker that hardly, has 50% chance to do anything. Kind of a tough sell.
Have they heard of the card Seasoned Pyromancer?
Yeah, well, that sounds a bit better. All right, I wanted to give her a higher grade, but I'm gonna give her 2 out of 5.
Yeah, 2 is fine.
She is pretty cheap after all, so it's a great quality to have on a planeswalker, but Creepy Puppeteer. This card I was on the fence if to even include it. I feel it's a card that you're gonna give one hat without discussion. For mana haste, whenever it attacks, if you attack with exactly one other creature this combat, you may have that creature base power and talents become for free until end of turn. For me, it's not unimaginable for red aggro to kind of want to play that. Haste threats are pretty potent, and this can like equate to be more than 4 haste power. It can be like even like 6 haste power probably.
Yeah.
In some spots.
No, I agree. I think that card could be good. I think it's kind of cool in maybe a white-red deck was the tokens from Aspirant. It's base for free, so that's a lot of damage. Also, Innkeeper into that, attack for 8.
Which Innkeeper? Oh, the Innkeeper, the Prosperous Innkeeper. Yeah, that's pretty nice.
It's kind of all in, but it can hit super hard, and it could be better than the dragon people play. The 2 of dragon people play. The
Moonveil Dragon.
Yeah, Depraz had 2 copies, I think, in his Teamer Treasure deck. I'm not saying it's gonna see play, but
it's not Moonveil Dragon, but some other dragon.
I think it's not impossible. It's incredibly hard. It's just super glass cannon.
Yeah, and kind of narrow too, because like it needs to attack exactly one other creature, so like not always gonna be relevant. Although if you're attacking with like 4 creatures, and like probably gonna be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
One notable anti-synergy. We found a card that Depra played. With casting Naturalis, you're gonna have to attack Naturalis first, and it's gonna be awkward to play a haste creature post-combat.
That's true.
I think I can give it 3. That's kind of generous. Oftentimes, like, I'm kind of confused as to whether I have to give 2 or 3 to the card, so I choose half at random. But
it has decent creature types too. Human rogues, you never know.
Yeah.
I'll give it a 3 too.
Alright. 3 out of 3. Creepy Puppeteer. Best red card so far.
Well, we did skip the reprint of Abray, but yeah.
Well, okay. So far. Abray definitely compares favorably. Dominating Vampire, 3 mana Vampire. ETB, gain control of target creature with mana value less or equal number of vampires controlled of turn. On top, it gains haste, 3/3. Notably, it can target itself. So if you have 2 if you care for a vampire into a vampire, you have a 3/3 haste for free on turn 3. Probably entirely reliant on like vampires being a deck, which I'm not a huge believer in.
Yeah, and even if it is, I'm not sure this one makes the cut. It's not quite a obligator. It's not super reliable. I think this card's just bad.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't even doesn't reliably give haste to itself. And I thought, well, baseline 3/3 haste is pretty good, but it doesn't because it can't target itself unless you have 2 vampires. All right, I'll give it a 1 because after further inspection of my thoughts, it doesn't attract me.
1 as well.
Yeah, not so dominating probably, despite what the name suggests. And the Festivities. A very minor card, but I thought worth bringing up. Red mana, 1 damage to each opponent, each creature and planeswalker they control. Ever since I've seen Blazing Volley in a sideboard of a blue-red Delver deck in a Legacy GP in 2016 or something, I feel obligated to mention like the card existing when a straight-up better version gets printed.
Yeah, it even has puppies on the art.
So it's like very minor, but
yeah, I agree. I had that card on my list too. You should mention it.
Yeah.
Mention it, give it a 2, move on.
Exactly. So they receives a 2 from me and from you.
Blazing Volley, so a tiny bit of play in Last Standard. Levy had it in the sideboard of his Magda rule deck for the mirror matches.
I haven't played this one, the Magda Gruul mirrors, because that was the time when they kicked me from the MP already. Flame Blessed Bolt, red mana, instant. Deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exiled instead.
Yeah, another strict upgrade, right?
Yeah, Magma Spray plus. And
can I get some Fs in chat for Magma Spray?
It wasn't too long when I've seen some Magma Sprays in Pioneer sideboards, so goodbye Magma Spray and welcome Flame Blessed Bolt. Slightly better because it's planeswalkers.
Historic sideboards too.
So I give it 2. I assume you give it 2 too.
For a card like Strictly Better, yeah, 2 is good. Yeah.
I mean, it's literally the same case as the card we talked about a minute before, the one of the dogs.
Yeah, except that one might see more play.
Yeah, Magma Spray is slightly better overall than Blazing Volley, I think. Chad is saying that this one is distressing. Magma Spray is an easy and memorable name. Now I have to remember Flame Blessed Bolt. Yeah, it is kind of lost, like, you know, the iconic names, Magma Spray, Lightning Bolt, versus whatever else. Kessig Wolf Rider, red mana, creature, Human Knight, Menace, 3 mana tap, exile 3 cards from your graveyard, create a 3/2 red wolf creature token. 1/2. Most disappointing part of the card being a 1/2. So pretty hard to go aggressive with 1 power 1 drops. On the other hand, they barely give us 2 power 1 drops in red. What do you think?
I was wondering what compelled you to put that card on the list.
Well, it's a 1 drop with an upside. I don't know.
Okay. Oh, okay. It is.
Like Flameblade Charger, right? It's a card that people... Flameblade Charger? What's the name of the 1 mana 1/1 that dies into pinging for its power?
Oh, yeah. I guess that's a good
Fireblades.
I guess.
So like,
right,
you know, when people need to, they play 1 power 1 drops.
Yeah, that's okay.
And that's what compelled me. That's so I'm saying that in my defense.
No, yeah. Okay, I agree.
And you know, if you want to just have a body for your Puppeteer to turn into a 4/3, a menace 4/3, mind you, that is a card that's up for that job.
Yeah.
Me myself, I'm giving it 2 out of 5, but a very non-generous one.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 1 still.
That's what I thought. Yeah, it is pretty lame. Like, it is. The ability is kind of a pipe dream and not really existing. Mana form Hellkite, 4 mana flying. When you cast a non-creature spell, create a XX Red Dragon illusion with haste, or X the amount of mana spent, and exile at the beginning of the next end step.
Yeah.
Yes, another card I see like your facial expression.
No, I
This
mean
card.
it's fine. It feels like on the same power level as the Regent,
Yeah,
has the same stats, almost same casting cost, a little harder to cast, I guess. And the ability is arguably better or worse than a Regent. And the Regent already didn't see a ton of play.
definitely more like aggressively slanted. Sometimes for not always, but sometimes the 4 mana 4/4 dragons make it here if like flying is super good or something.
Yeah, I feel like I maybe like it better was maybe if you have like a couple of burn spells in hand that basically doubles the damage your burn spell deal. Or
Yeah, because they have flying too, the illusions.
yeah, it's not doubled because your burn spell, what, it's a lightning strike, so it's +2 damage on a lightning strike or +1 damage on a shock. Yeah.
And there's probably also some people who like dream of combining it with Epiphany, so you get a 7 power attack and then you like kill a person immediately. But for the most part, you like kinda maybe not that often, but you kill people with the Epiphany quite often.
Yeah. It could be okay with, I don't know how it's going to like play out with Chariot.
It's a card for racing, certainly.
You do get a token if you get that dragon into Chariot, but you probably want to play Chariot first almost always, just because if they have a removal spell, you kind of have to. So it's kind of awkward there. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2.
Yeah, 2 feels like a proper raid because it is like a creature that dies to removal. All things considered, before you can gain your value a decent portion of the time. But there is like a promise of some, well, value. Vampire's Vengeance. 3 mana instant, 2 damage to each non-vampire creature, create a blood token. Random like small upside sweeper for like a specific deck, or can just be used as a small sweeper for a control deck, unless there is many vampires, small vampires being played, because then it becomes bad.
Yeah,
It's
that
like,
could be. Yeah, if Vamp is good, that could be the card that gives you the edge in the creature matchups. Could be a big deal. You need Vamp to be good, and you need that card to be good in Vamp. That's asking for a bit, but I had that card on my list too. I thought it was interesting.
yeah, if Vamp is good, then you play it in Vamps. If Vamp is bad, then you can play it outside of Vamp instead of Cinderclasm if you prefer it.
Yeah, because green gets like Blizzard Brawl, white just has tons of good cheap creatures. You get maybe Portable Hole or Cathar, and that's kind of Vamp's anti-creature card they get access to. It's hard to know.
Yeah, so I give it 2.
Yeah, let's give it a 2.
Because that's just the truth of Magic the Gathering. Most of the cards are average minus. Also, there's an easier cost than Cinderclasm. Like 2 red instead of 1 red. If you want to kick it. Volatile Arsonist, 5 mana, Menace Haste. When attacks, it deals 1 damage to 1 creature, planeswalker, or player. And on the second side, Menace Haste, 5/5. When attacks, it deals 2 damage. Probably hard for like a 5 mana haster to compete with Goldspan Dragon, but it is a haster that does pack a punch, as they say. It hits for a bit more damage. When it flips, it hastes for 7 damage. It's a pretty hefty attack.
Yeah, it does that. It gives you. It makes you think about. Potentially playing it over Goldspan Dragon's a good sign, right? You're not like, oh, this is clearly going to be always worse than Goldspan Dragon. So it's even in the discussion. No, it's well costed. It does a lot. It hits hard. The werewolf deck is not terrible. The red green werewolf deck or Naya werewolf deck.
Yeah, there's like a lot of haste that you could play in this deck too right now with the what's the name of the 3 mana werewolf with haste? Reckless
Stormseeker.
Stormseeker. So like that. In general, having haste is, I view it as a positive thing for aggro decks, and having a lot of haste also works well together because it gives you like naturally good insurance against sweepers, etc.
Yeah.
So I think Arsonist is not entirely out of discussion. Especially since when I played red aggressive decks and like some standards with Goldspan Dragon available, Goldspan Dragon it does shine with like blue cards, but it doesn't really. It's kind of disappointing, and it was kind of disappointing in Gruul often to me, or like some decks like that where you couldn't take the advantage of those treasures to cast interaction that well. Also, you can ping monsters, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, I almost want to. I was going to give it a 3. I'm tempted to give it a 4. Let's see. Red, green, werewolf in standard. 2 damage. I mean, I'm still going to give it a 3, but
it's not very reliable to like have them be flipped from like what I played. Yeah. I played very little, but the night bounce happens fairly rarely, so I would mostly be looking at the first side. I'm gonna give it 3.
Yeah, I mean, it could never see play. It could be the staple 5-drop and end up being a 4, 4.5.
Yeah, but there's pretty stiff competition at 5 drops.
If you even want 5 drops in your aggressive decks.
Exactly.
Right, I had a couple of red cards on him mentioned. There was Abray, but we know what Abray does, and Chariot, etc. There was Curse of Hospitality, kind of potentially. Maybe I was thinking maybe a sideboard card against a control deck. It basically turns every one of your creatures into a must kill.
Whenever a creature deals combat damage to another player, that player exiles the top card of their library until the end of turn. That creature's must kill?
I mean, basically, if you're playing a control deck and they put the curse on you, every time a 1/1 or a 2/2 deals damage to you, it basically draws them a card. So
it draws them a card from your control deck, so like it draws them like removal of sweepers, and you're like, damn.
I guess so. I don't know.
Seems way too dank for me to.
All right, next.
But there's one card that I didn't mention and I wanted to mention.
Got shut down, chat.
Volley and Epicure.
Oh yeah, I missed that card too somehow. I probably saw 1/1 coming for 1 right and just moved along whenever I went through the list.
I ignored it, but it is the Thriber Inspector of Blood tokens, I guess. So yeah, red mana, 1/1 vampire. ETB deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then you create a blood token. So if you can utilize bloods, or if you can utilize discard outlets, then this is potentially worthwhile. Or if you can utilize game objects, again, 2 objects for 1 card, always a bit better than bit better than it looks potentially.
With that card's not good enough for Dredge, right? For modern Dredge?
No, it's probably not. It's worse than Neonate.
Yeah.
Assuredly it's not. And Neonate is not played because it's worse than the Adventure Haggle card, which is also not played much right now. So this is many layers.
It looks Ragavan. That card is cool. Potential playable 1-drop or vamp.
Yeah, I complain about vampires not getting 1-drop. So if this is a 1-drop that vampires wants to play just because it's a body plus the bloods for the synergies, then vampires actually does have 1-drops, but a 1/1 for standard for 1. It's still a 1/1 1/1, which is kind of lame.
Yeah.
You have a rate in mind for this?
I mean, it's either a 1 or a 2. Is it good enough for Vam's gonna see play 1 damage? Kind of triggers also the Vamp abilities down the line, even if you're not able to attack, you play the Florian on turn 3, and then assuming you can't attack on turn 4, you still get to play that. See the top card of your deck, play the Florian. I don't know, man. You go first. I'm just gonna copy whatever you do.
I'm gonna give it a 2.
All right, let's give it a generous 2.
All right.